Welcome back to the Sharpest College Football Podcast, brought to you by LeanTossup Sports. This is the Week 7 preview. This is at Buckmetrics. Follow me on Twitter. I am joined, as always, by Robert Martin, founder, proprietor, owner, general, awesome guy of LeanTossup Sports. Robert, are you looking forward to Week 7?
Yeah, I mean, it's we've had some very kind of interesting weeks the last couple of weeks. I'm pretty excited to get into this week. We're getting to the point now. I think they actually college football. They did their official college football ranking show earlier tonight. I think. So we're getting into the
I didn't
business
see
end
that.
of the season. So, uh, yeah, let's get into it.
Sounds good. Alrighty. Here come a bunch of my metrics, and I didn't mention this to you, Robert. I snuck a new one in here, but that's a little
Ooh,
bit later. My top 20 offenses. I've highlighted the new entrants, Kansas, after that embarrassment of UCF jumps in at number 13. Louisiana, I hit on them in part one. Zion Chris, I think is the name of the quarterback. They're already at number 16. Florida State making a run on offense. We talked in part one about their defense is a area of concern, but offense is coming around. Georgia jumped in with that embarrassment of Kentucky and North Carolina, kind of the same against lesser Syracuse. All these make sense. I was surprised that Louisiana jumped up. They had a good outing against Texas State. That was a sneaky, good Sun Belt game. Louisiana's kind of lucky to win. You know, it was a legitimate win, but Texas State was leading for a good part of that game. What sticks out to you here?
yeah. I mean, it's kind of funny to see LSU there as number two. Um, I mean, but to be fair, they are one of the best offenses in the country, though. Despite the fact that they keep winning games ridiculously close, they are one of the top offenses. Their just defense is also one of the worst. So, yeah, no, this list mostly shakes out. I think Notre Dame up there is pretty interesting. They have not scored over 20 points in the last like 3 weeks, but it just goes to show you strength of schedule adjustments there because
Yeah.
that has been against Ohio State, Duke, and then Louisville. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, they have been up against some really tough defenses and actually some good teams, and then they haven't scored the points. But at the same time, it's just like yeah, these are some good teams that they're facing. So
Yeah. Credit to Kansas for really continuing the step forward on both sides of the ball, but especially on offense. And again, you know, we saw things unravel for them when they lost Jalen Daniels last season, and the offense, at the very least, they know how to go to Plan B when when Daniels is out. And you know, would they have 55 against UCF? We talked about that game in part one. You know, it's not like they just barely snuck by the Knights there. All right, top 20 defenses. We got rid of that horrible looking mascot for Penn State. UCLA with another really good performance against the vastly underrated and overlooked Cam Ward, as is overlooked this defense. You know, I'm hearing people coming around. I saw some guy for the Athletics say, "Hey, guess what? UCLA's defense is for real, guys." It's like, well, thanks for breaking news. That's not news because guess who had this 2 weeks ago? Yours truly. But thanks
yeah,
for being late at your job and worse at it than a nerd CPA in Newport Beach.
we said that before they played Utah. We're like, hey, this
Yeah.
defense is good, and then they lost
Yep.
that game 14-7.
To 7, and half of that 14 was a pick
Was a
six.
pick six? Yeah,
Yep. Michigan jumps up. I think that they finally got the kick in the butt from Harbaugh, or just, you know, whatever changed from having four different coaches in their first three games. Ohio sneakily a really good defense, by far the best in the MAC, which is surprising because their real strength was their offense last year. Their defense was really suspect, although in the MAC preview I did say that their defense made sneaky big improvement in the latter half of the season. So not surprised to see them improved. I definitely did not see them as a top 40 defense, let alone top 15. And Air Force, this is troubling. I think for good reason. Wyoming is getting a lot of credit for beating Texas Tech and Fresno State at home. Good for them. Um, Guess what? Air Force has a better defense, and Air Force is clearly much better at offense with an awesome offensive identity. I think Air Force is. This is going to be one of those phrases I just kind of use in this podcast quite a bit. Criminally overlooked. They are a really good team.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree with that. Air Force is legit. Bye week last week. This week they play Wyoming, potentially just for the entire
Mm.
Mountain West. Um, but yeah, like legit. Like I think they're a better team than Wyoming. I think Wyoming has gotten some wins, and I'm not taking away from Wyoming on those wins. And they again played close to Texas. They played close against Texas, but I think that the Air Force should win that game, and then probably by winning that game, they should probably wrap up a ticket to the championship game. Maybe not the Mountain West itself, but to be fair,
Yeah,
we said it
that
last year against Air Force too, so you never
yeah,
know.
that might be another one of those previews of the conference title game.
Hmm.
I'm just kind of looking here really quick. Who do I have ahead between those two? It's got to be. Yeah, I have Air Force as the top team, and then Fresno State. Wyoming's offense is it's just limiting for them. All right. So my composite top 20, a new leader. We've got Washington here, and here's a little live action preview of the upcoming game this Saturday. You've got the classic Husky punching the the Oregon Duck. This looks like something from about 50 years ago, or maybe even 60 or 70. And I've got your rankings in there as well. Pretty decent overlays here. You've got Washington a little lower, but I think not too far lower. Penn State a lot lower than I have here. You've got Notre Dame way down, and I think that's probably more of a recency thing. I think that you've got. Do you have like some decay in your model, if I remember correctly, or no?
Yeah, there is decay, right? So then some of the
No.
it doesn't get rid of them, but it basically starts saying that like okay, some of the later wins are down weighted in terms of weight, right? So that the most recent games are shown. So that against Louisville is a problem. That game against Louisville is now a problem. Some stuff like that. So I will say I think in some cases my model is a little overreactive in some cases. I don't know what the thing is Penn State moved a lot by not even doing anything, and it just shows you kind of how jittery the model can be. For example, teams at Penn State specifically, well, Iowa had a horrible game, and as did Illinois, two teams Penn State beat, so that alone was enough to drop Penn State like 10 spots. So that is, and that's not Penn State's fault. And again, this is I'm not recommending, at least not yet. I'm not recommending you doing this in place of the college football. I'm happy to make my own rankings, and I need to incorporate I think some of the more refined elements of what the BCS was to kind of. This is meant to be like if my model had these teams playing, who I think would be favored, and I think it does a pretty good job of that to some extent.
Yeah.
But I think there is still some pieces in there that are like some teams are a little too high, some are probably a little like North Carolina is too low. I think Miami is still too high, but you have them still at 4 too. So, but the thing is that we can't. Our models do not incorporate bad coaching decisions, right? We're not like, oh well, bad coaching minus 8 points per game, right? We don't. Ours
Exactly.
doesn't do that,
Yeah.
right? So
There's no
it's
golf handicap in there where you're
no
starting
exactly.
eight strokes down to the other guy.
Yeah, so it's interesting, but yeah, I think there is some pieces there that the model does probably overreact a bit, especially Penn State. Poor Penn State, they did nothing wrong. They just get like just clubbed. But yeah, no, it's. But I will say though, it's interesting though that again, no Florida State, one of the a top 4 team. Oklahoma, I have them at 22. I'm not completely sure why. I do have Texas ahead of them. In my
I think
model,
that's
my ranking
probably the
does, and
decay
yours does
thing.
too. It is, yeah.
They had a couple of like shoddy offensive performances against
Hmm.
SMU and Cincinnati recently that got to be dragging down that number.
Hmm. One interesting thing I will say though is Bama is climbing on up.
Yeah.
Um, they have been, they haven't even been. They were like I think 80th at one point. Now that was really early in the season. That was when they almost lost to USF. But since they've then been climbing and climbing and climbing, and like I still think LSU's a better team than them. My model also agrees. My model has them power ranked roughly the same, and I think that's going to be an incredible game in a couple of weeks. And I've already locked in some LSU plus sevens and some stuff like that, which I will gladly take any day of the week. But at the same time, like there's a non-zero chance Alabama can go undefeated, get to the SEC championship game, and then them versus Georgia. Don't know what's Georgia would probably, based on what I'm seeing, Georgia would probably be probably a 14-point favorite, but I don't think you can't even lay that though with the books though. Like there is no way the sports books are going to have you being like Bama's going to be a 14-point underdog to anybody. There's no way. They should be, but there's no way, right? So
Yeah, well, here are just, I mean, these are actual ratings, so I would have that 3.5
okay.
per my ratings here. Although, if I want Bama, I'd probably want 7. If I'm Georgia, I'd probably give 2.5. I'd probably have like 4.5 or 5. If I was running a book,
Yeah.
which seems, the 14. I think, I don't know. I don't know. Interesting.
Yeah.
And some of these, North Carolina, they've really just turned it around. Not turned it around. They've really come on strong these last few weeks. Interesting story in the ACC, which is usually a pretty boring conference. I think when you've got, all the Dabo baggage taking a step back, that's a good story. And then you've got some really fun teams that are stepping into the void. And then you've got Duke that's technically still undefeated, although we'll see with right in conference, if Riley Leonard can, or they can make up for Riley Leonard's absence.
Yeah, but either way though, 1 versus 2 in your books, 1 versus 6
Yeah.
in mine. I'll call it. It's a top 5-ish matchup between Oregon and Washington.
Yeah.
And again, this game has huge implications for obviously the Pac-12, college football playoff, Heisman. This game has huge implications because I suspect one of these teams has at least a 50% chance. Looking at look-ahead lines, Oregon is the most recent one I saw. Oregon is 4.5-point favorites against USC in a couple weeks. Now that is too high, I think.
No, it's not.
No. Okay.
No.
Well, okay, I'll take that. I'll believe you on that then. That's fine. But
I'll put it this way. I think, to go back to your other point, your prior point, I think this is the highest of all the teams. This is Oregon's highest leverage spot because they're on the road, and I would consider hosting USC an easier game than playing out Washington.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's very fair. But yeah, this is a big game. This game could determine the loot, and this is actually an interesting point too because Ari Weishman on the Athletic basically wrote an article saying, "Oh, people are saying we should have the 12-team college football playoff now. They're wrong," which is funny because that was I'm not sure if he actually probably doesn't listen to the show, but like that was me like I think 4 weeks ago. I think like week 3, I'm like, man, it'd be really helpful. And like I think more people started calling for that now. But he's like, oh, this is perfect. And again, this is not a criticism of him. He's a good writer and stuff. And to be fair, the job of a writer is to be provocative, to offer a differing opinion, to get people to think about their pieces. And again, not a criticism of him. And actually, I think in his article, he did a very good job of that. And 100% props off to him. That being said, I completely disagree with that because the point is he's saying like, oh, because it's not a 12-team, it's only a 14, game like Washington or Oregon has additional meaning. And okay, that's one way to look at it, that yes, this game is theoretically an elimination game, potentially.
Yeah.
The other way to look at it is the fact that we're eliminating a good team way too soon. That one of these teams...
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
An interception, a fluky fumble, anything, a weird kick return, by doing that, basically a top team in the country is going to be eliminated by potentially a very fluky play. Like, for example, theoretically, Florida State versus Clemson. Now, it's not the same thing exactly, but Clemson missing that field goal. Theoretically, now there was other stuff, obviously, Clemson losing earlier, and Clemson also just not being good has eliminated them from the college football playoff. But theoretically, that missed field goal there with like a minute and a half left in the fourth quarter could have theoretically eliminated Clemson by missing a 30-yard field goal. And then obviously Florida State could have come back and that's fine. But by missing that, or by making it could have potentially eliminated Florida State from the college football playoff, or by missing it themselves. Like this is where we're at now, and it's not fair. Now again, there's 1,000 other reasons why Clemson isn't going to go to the college football playoff. But it's unfair to eliminate someone off of just that. And people are like, oh, well, it means the regular season has more meaning. And it's like, well, okay, yes, but I would much rather just see if there's good teams playing against each other. I'd love to see that again, right? Like we saw Oklahoma, Texas again. If Oklahoma Now, mostly this is on the Oklahoma side, but on the Texas side, if Texas really is that good, basically what you're going to have is you're now going to have they could play again in the culture. They could play again in the Big 12 championship game.
Mm-hmm.
Oklahoma wins. That's it. Texas is gone. Now, I personally don't. I don't think Texas is a top 4 team. I think they could be like a top 10-ish team, give or take. I think that makes a lot more sense. And I don't think they should. But the thing is, in a 12-team playoff, okay, Oklahoma beats Texas twice. Guess what? That means Oklahoma's getting round one bye. Texas is still going to the 12-team playoff. And that's the way it should be. Because guess what? If they play 2 really close games and Texas loses by 4 points the first time, and then Oklahoma marches down the field, game-winning field goal, you would eliminate Texas completely. And you could say they could be basically eliminated because of 2 fluky plays, because of basically 2 good Dylan Gabriel drives. They'd be eliminated. Versus in the 12-team system, now all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, you're not actually eliminated. You now get to go play, I don't know, in this theoretical, it may be like a Liberty or something. You get to go play another good team, and you get to prove that you should be back there, and you can get that match a third time. Like next year, when the Big Ten is divisionless, who would like to see Michigan Ohio State 3 times? That sounds great. That sounds awesome. Sign me up for 3 Michigan Ohio State games. Like seriously, like I don't understand why people are like, oh no, it's better when there's only one. Why? It's good football. Let's see good football 2-3 times a year. Let's do that. I'm for that. But
Yeah,
anyways, that's rant over on that. But yeah,
I
it's yeah.
agree. And I don't think that any Texas fan would be less grief stricken if they still had a shot at the playoffs. That game still hurt, and that's at the end of the day, this game is all about the hurt and avoiding the hurt. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Here's the new one. I have a strength of record top 20. So
Ooh.
this is basically saying this is kind of what I would say would be my stab at BCS replication to say, okay, I'm going to take each team's schedule and I'm going to say, how would the average FBS team do against this schedule? And then I take the actual wins versus the FBS average, and that's what this plus wins metric is. And the thing that I like about this is it really incorporates more directly a lot of your strength of schedule, and it's going to gravitate a lot towards what we see that, and I hate to legitimize, polls that kind of suck, but this does kind of weight more heavily towards your, what makes sense in your power teams. This does align, but not exactly. I like how it differs from, the polls. I've got Oklahoma 1 and Texas 2. Nobody would have Texas number 2 because nobody would give them that much credit for a loss. There's some kind of rule that, okay, unless you lose to an SEC team, you're going to fall at least 5 spots or whatever. You can't be in the top 5. What's really interesting here, too, you get Florida State popping up there, which is interesting. James Madison, I don't know if 5 is a little aggressive, but my guy K Ford, he actually dropped his too, and he has James Madison like it definitely in his top 20. I think about maybe number 15. Um, Disappointingly, we have Iowa number 8. Sorry, can't fix everything. They do win games, unfortunately.
Somehow.
Why? Yeah, despite their best efforts. Wyoming sneaks in at number 10, which is interesting. So shows there's credence to both those wins they have over Texas Tech and Fresno State. They're getting credit for that. This is where USC finally jumps in. For as fraud as they've looked at times the last 3 weeks, they have not lost, and they've actually played some teams that can beat other teams. And Colorado sneaks in at number 22 or 20 also. So, which is interesting. I think that, looking back, maybe the TCU one is not aging great, but Nebraska's not horrible despite how badly they looked against Michigan. I think that they're a legitimate Big Ten West program. They're not an embarrassment. So kind of makes sense. I don't know. Aside from Wyoming and James Madison, anything else stick out to you here, or does it kind of conceptually make sense?
No, James Madison does make sense. They have, well, I mean, except for, I mean, they did play Virginia. Now this is again, it's who you beat, right? And
Yeah.
Virginia just got their first win against an FCS team this week, of which I didn't know this at the time. Oh, you got something else up there. You got
Oh,
okay.
sorry.
I didn't know this at the time. But they were like, because I saw the game and like randomly they were playing William and Mary, and William and Mary uh, was competitive with them for a while, and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, they didn't cover the spread. The spread must have been 30. The spread was 10. I'm like, What? You were favored over an FCS team by 10? What? And I mean, they covered the spread, so shout out to them. But like, they were favored over an FCS team by 10. That's how bad. Now, I think it was a relatively good FCS team, but you were favored over them by 10. Like,
Yeah.
that's crazy to me. Anyways, no, I think the rest of this list makes a lot of sense. I think Colorado is as well an interesting one. I think Colorado is actually not bad, right? I mean, they have lost to USC and Oregon. Okay, so has everybody else USC and Oregon has played,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
I
No
don't.
crime there.
That's the thing, right? And I think a lot of people are like, "Ah, see, Colorado hype's over. They're not that good." Well, actually, maybe not because they actually they have played against their two losses are against two of the top teams in the country. And yeah, that win against Arizona State was a bit yucky. I think Colorado -6, so that hurts because they went down the field and got a game timing field goal. If they could have stopped that guy from getting a touchdown. That would have been nice, but they didn't. Oh well. Um, but it's okay. I'm still on them this week. I don't think Stanford's pretty good, so I think they should be able to beat Stanford pretty easily. So yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's interesting. So
And back,
I mostly agree with this. Yeah.
yeah, back to your point. Yeah, Virginia stinks, and I think no, they don't. They do stink. We've hit on them a lot, but sneakily, James Madison has played, probably the two other toughest teams in the Sun Belt in Troy and South Alabama. So I think they're getting a lot of points for that. Oops.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Conference power ratings. Just the only really movement here is Conference USA moved ahead of the Mountain West. Can I say CUSA? Awesome.
Yeah.
The other thing to keep in mind here for later is the Sun Belt is literally an FBS average conference. They're literally just right there at average, which is very impressive for a group of 5 conference, but just keep that in mind later when I get into my deeper dive as well.
Mm-hmm.
Top Apex quarterbacks, 3 new entrants on here. JJ McCarthy. The whole Michigan thing is just ramping upward with what's his name? Goofball coming back, weirdo. Harbaugh. Brett Gabbert, Miami, sneaking into the top 10. Miami, that Miami versus Ohio tuggle for the East is going to be interesting in the MAC. You've got 2 really good teams with very different strengths. And then Carson Beck snuck into the top 10 after facing a good defense in Kentucky, or maybe what might have been a good defense before. All right. Let me see if I can get rid of that. Why is that happening here? Okay.
There you go.
Top Ryan. A new name. This is a new name to me. Colin Lacey at South Alabama. Good for him. Great. One other thing to notice here, we've got one Washington guy. What's interesting too that I was on the pod with our buddies Four Horsemen Dylan about the Notre Dame USC game coming up this week, and one thing I noticed in preparing, I'm focused on the top 10 here. There's only one Washington guy in the top 10. Rome, good for him. We were on him more than a year ago. USC has 2 guys in the top 16. Taj Washington is back in the top 10, and Brendan Rice, who's just been really good for them, is number 16. I bring that up because Notre Dame has nobody in the top 100. And I think if you've got two receivers that are that explosively productive, I'll say, and a quarterback like Caleb Williams, even though you've got kind of repeat on the whole theme of the season, you've got that kind of receiving and passing talent. You can cover up a lot of defensive deficiencies. Top team, Ryan, Georgia came in. I think this is a matter of Beck improving and then getting the ball a lot more to Brock Bowers. I don't know if there's any real news on here. Kind of the same suspects, USC and LSU. I kind of think that USC, LSU, and Missouri should have a round robin to get like a wild card playoff berth. Just like the whole great offense and horrible defense little play-in sequence.
Yeah. I mean that game was very entertaining. So.
Yeah. Tough beat
was,
if you had Missouri, man.
Well, so I had the over, which cashed very easily. Actually, it cashed like in the relatively early in the.
We both had that at 77. It was amazing. Both our models, totally different ways to get there. Both had the total at
Yeah.
77. It even went over that, and the total was
Mm-hmm.
61 that I
But then
grabbed at least.
with Bet365, you get a 5% boost on your payout if you parlay um, either two spreads or two money line, or two spreads or two totals. So or if you so it's like if you have like two, it's a 5%, three, it's like a 10%. It scales up just based on how many like spreads, totals, and stuff you have. It doesn't apply to money lines. So I was like, oh, I'm gonna be smart. I'm gonna parlay Missouri spread and the over. And yeah, that was rough. That was a huge swing. That would have been, and again, it was really dumb. And I was like, and again, LSU was like, they were so close to getting that first down right on the clock. And I was like, get the first down. And they didn't. I'm like, what are you doing? That was very sad. But I did have, one, I cashed the spread anyways. And I also cashed Jalen Daniels over 2.5 passing touchdowns. So not the worst game for me, but that's very sad. I would be
Yeah,
a little richer if that had happened.
that's rough. I'm sure you appreciated Isaiah pointing that out about 10 seconds after it happened too.
Yeah. He's like, oh man, that'd be rough if that happened. I'm like, yeah, that
Yeah.
would be really rough if someone had done that.
Yeah. What do you mean if? All right, our top running offense is here, top G Gabs. Kansas. I guess it's really fun to play UCF if you're a Big 12 team. That's kind of the lesson there. Michigan again, the whole offense trajectory up, if that's a word. Liberty and USC, both in the top 10 in rushing offense and top 10 apex quarterbacks. Have I mentioned that Liberty is a menace? I don't know what they were doing in the first half tonight, but man.
Oh, they finish it off 31-13, so that's good.
Yeah.
Also, I will say Air Force is fourth on this list because they had their bye this week. So that's why
Yes.
they're not. That's why they're
Okay.
not number one. That makes a lot more sense when you think about it, and they will, I believe, reclaim the throne this week, but hopefully against Wyoming. But yeah, that's yeah,
And
that makes sense.
I think over a third of the Central Florida number, UCF number, is that game against Kent State. That's going to keep them up there for they're going to defy gravity for weeks.
Yeah, and also we may have to, this metric might have to change for next year because Boston College had 300 rushing yards this week. So
yeah, I think it depends on who it is. Like, what would be bad if it's like, it won't be Wisconsin, but if like Gigaw with a W wouldn't work. So let's hope it's inappropriate. That's
let's
something to
hope
root
the
for.
acronym sticks.
Yeah.
Actually, do you have who's last in GGAB so far this year?
Yeah, I was about to pull that up.
Or do you have it on a different
screwing
slide?
up the graphic there. No, I don't have the. Yeah, there's not enough time to get into all the horrible things. But let me just see here. Yeah, see, this won't work. Oh, my Hawaii. Jiga.
That's okay. That's okay. Jiga.
They're only just 1 yard ahead of them is Rice. That would work. Jigar.
Yeah, okay. That's sure for Rice to who. Yeah, we'll have to see who Rice plays. Hopefully.
Or yeah, this would be great. Or Sam Houston. G Gash. I like that.
Oh yeah, and they are not good too. Like they're playing tomorrow night.
No.
Let's see. We're gonna watch that game tomorrow night. I'm gonna be like, every time they run the ball, I'll be like, get set. Like, come on, like -1 yards. We can do this.
Yeah.
Come on, guys.
All right. The bum list. New entrants. Will Howard. My gosh, he was so good last season. He was actually better than I'm rated higher than Adrian Martinez. He was pretty much the reason they lost last week to a pretty bad Oklahoma State team. He had 3 picks. And it's not like Oklahoma State is great on defense, although plausible case could be made. The announcers were making on Friday that new DC, maybe things just kind of fall into place for the new DC. And once that happens, it's really tough. I've seen that in basketball a couple times. Ben Bryant at Northwestern. Where have you been, buddy? We've been waiting for you here.
Yeah, God, Northwestern just beating an FCS team by 3 at home. I think it was at home.
Yes.
Just rough. And like, where there is what's his face? Deacon Hill. Like, is there an attempts thing on this? Like, he's got to be close. He can't be.
Yeah, where I scraped this from is not. It's not total. It's just like your top. It's your bottom of your top qualifying passers.
Qualifying.
But to your points, and that's why we have this graphic right here to catch such things. That's why Iowa's there, number Number 126 out of 133 with a mighty 84 Ryan. Just behind Eastern Michigan. How about behind Wyoming? How's that going for you guys? Wyoming doesn't even try to throw the ball. And I was going to say that's like being behind Army. Guess what? You are behind Army and Navy. Good job.
Being behind both of those is like that's like, oh god, this is really bad. Like
Yeah.
you're behind both of them. It's like because like they they don't throw the ball. Like if your receivers are like having yards below expected, then Army and Navy teams that like and not like Air Force whatever they do some stuff. Sometimes they throw the ball because I think partly because they get bored, but also because it's a great thing to just kind of throw in there where it's just like we're just gonna throw the ball because they're not expecting it. That's great. Power to them. But Army and Navy, though, they do not throw the ball because their whole thing is running the ball, and you're worse than them at throwing the ball. That's a problem. That is concerning.
Exactly. Yeah, and then third from the bottom is the team that just beat the team that beat Miami as well. All right, defensive apex.
Yeah.
Marshall, we're going to get into them a little bit later. Ohio State, kind of underreported story here is it's their defense that's leading them so far on this season. It's not their offense. UCLA, I don't know what took them so long to get in here in the top 10. And then Duke is not a surprise, very solid defensive team. So nothing really here that surprises me. Liberty, of course, sitting there number 3 because Liberty is a menace.
The thing about Ohio State is it's really interesting because like at some point when you sit down and you're like, okay, it's the defense leading them, and they have like 2 first rounds and maybe a second round, 2 first round wide receivers and a second round running back. What does that mean for Kyle McCord, right?
Yeah.
That there are question marks there, to say the least. And I would be, if I am Ohio State, I mean, again, they seem to have an unlimited population of first-round wide receivers. So, power to them. But if you ever start running out of first-round wide receivers and Kyle McCord is still your quarterback, or you lose defensive pieces, right? Because you can, I mean, that's what we said about Iowa. Iowa is not as good on defense as they were last year. Iowa last year provided a lot of pick sixes to help their offense score. They've been less pick sixes this year. But this is the thing, right? Like, Ohio State, it should not be favored over Michigan. They should not be favored over Penn State at all.
No.
And I think they were lucky. They were lucky to beat Maryland, let alone cover the spread. They should not have won that game, let alone cover the spread. And it's because their defense clamped down. I think they got like 2 or 3 picks of Tagovailoa, and they just eventually chipped down on Maryland. And Maryland did something insane at the end of the first half where they could have gotten a field goal, and they just decided not to for some reason. Like, that would have
decided not to.
Yeah, they're just like, whatever, it's fine.
Yeah, we'll get an early start on halftime now. We're good. I don't know if it unfolded like that.
It was also really bad. Like, I watched that live. I was like, what are you doing? But
to the point about Ohio State too, I think I tweeted this out, and there's nothing better than that podcast where I just refer to tweets. I know that everybody loves that. But Ohio State is actually like 64th in offensive GGAB, which is really concerning. If your quarterback's not there yet, and I don't mean not there like, hey, you're not Baker Mayfield yet. It's like, you're not really CJ Stroud even close 6 games in, and you're not running the ball. And this is, my tweet was in response to a tweet where a Ohio State reporter said he spoke to, I don't know if it was Ryan Day or the offensive line coach, and whoever it was, whichever coach said, there's just a huge drop off after the starting 5 for Ohio State. So, number 1, there's no help coming anytime soon, which is a concern for the offensive line. Number 2, you better stay healthy, guys, or this could get really grim on offense, surprisingly grim for Ohio State.
Yeah, I mean, it's not unheard of to lose an offensive lineman for any amount of time.
Yeah.
And then as well, they don't play every snap. Sometimes these guys take rests, right? So you're sitting out a series. Watch out. Make sure like your right tackles, they better not be taking off any series there. So yeah, like, and I think that is part of the problem. I think their offensive line is not as strong, which has been hurting the running game, which has been hurting their quarterback play. It's a cascade effect, but their defense is really good, which has been keeping them in the games. But I think it's a combination of McCord is either not the guy or not there yet. Maybe he'll be the guy next year, but generally these teams have a strong stream of guys coming in the future, right? So there's probably a long line of 5 stars right behind him that could be, at least for next year, that could be potentially getting this job, right? So
Yeah.
I think if you're Ohio State, and again, the thing is, this is kind of, although Ohio State is undefeated, this is again the same thing. This is the theory, right? So at first I was kind of low on CJ Stroud in the preseason, but actually he's been balling out. He's actually like one of my favorite new rookies now. He's actually really good. He's quite a bit of money actually. So shout out to him. So I like, but again, he's looking good in the NFL, and Ohio State's looking worse this year, right? So um, it's a very interesting bit of a mix there. But like, also just quick shout out to Houston there. Could you imagine if Houston is? They're only going to get Marvin Harrison, but they could very easily, if they want to, get Ibuka. They can they can get him Ibuka back in the NFL. That'd be kind of awesome for Houston.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be. Because Houston's actually pretty good this year. They could potentially go to the playoffs, maybe.
All right. Yeah, I've got some questions here about my own metrics. I don't know. I might have to rethink this one. So this is my decent defensive GGAB. I'm not sure how Ole Miss gets on there. That's surprising. I get Iowa. I get most of the teams here. I think Jacksonville State, since this is not adjusted for strength of schedule, there's probably a lot of early season stuff in there that's going to keep them elevated for a long time. Old Dominion, I don't know. Just what. Not that I'd spend a bunch of time there. I kind of want to watch some Old Dominion football just to see like what do they look like compared to the metrics, because I can't get any kind of thing between the metrics and my preseason expectation, and I just don't know what's going on there. But they're actually having a decent season. So Ole Miss jumps into the top 10 here, which doesn't make sense. Iowa in there. Iowa and UCLA there in italics because they're the only two that are in the top 10 run and pass defense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this seems about right. Jacksonville State is a little odd there, and they kind of just got crushed today by a Liberty team that kind of ran all over them. So that I don't. I think as we are presenting this graphic live, this list is changing live. But yeah, it's the rest of the team. The rest of the thing makes sense. Texas A&M actually is pretty good. They held Bama to like nothing for running, like literally nothing. That was kind of impressive against Bama to do that.
Here we go. Oh, okay. Yeah. Jacksonville State has played very poor offense, UTEP, and exceptionally poor offense, Eastern Michigan. I forget. Yeah, it's that 21. They shut out Eastern Michigan 21-0. I think that just makes light bend when it comes to these just not counting, cumulative stats of mine.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Market intelligence. So these are the lines that just kind of stuck out to me. I kind of forgot that we would be live potting this. So I thought Liberty just seemed a little short. I didn't know what that was. I thought that might be a little bit too much belief in Jacksonville State. I don't know if the market didn't really get the shock to the system that, you and I and Isaiah got after that Sam Houston punch to the face. Was that last week? I think that was.
Week, yeah. That was last Thursday, yeah.
So you had this, you're, I don't know if that was on the pod or between the pods. This didn't make sense to me, but I think this line went up too, right? From 6.
It was, I saw a 7. I think it briefly touched 7 earlier today, came back down a bit, but this was a blowout. They won it by 18. Liberty won by 18. I grabbed that. Again, this is where, and the next one's going to be an example of this. FanDuel and early week grab lines early in the week, and then you don't even have to, like, I had 5.5, so I didn't, like, I mostly, now Liberty did come back. They were a bit iffy in the first half. Second half they poured it on, but I had 5.5. I had their running back over 75.5 rushing yards. He had 87 at the half, ended with 150 some odd. I also then alt sprayed it up to 13.5. That cashed. Had 20.5. That did not cash. I am still a little sad about that one, but that's okay. But yeah, good solid win on that one. That's fine. So, but yeah, no, Liberty is. I think in a lot of cases, I think especially with these Power Five ones, I think the book's model is very kind of lazy. I think it's just kind of like, oh well, people are gonna like. I think in some ways they're better at modeling what people are gonna do rather than what what the outcome actually is, because I think
Yep.
they're like, oh, Liberty almost lost to Sam Houston, a team that hasn't won a
Yeah.
game yet. They're horrible, so we're gonna have to put it to 6 to get people to bet on it, right? And people are gonna be like, oh,
Hmm.
Jacksonville State, they beat Middle Tennessee State, a team that has one win. Okay, right. So I think in that case, I think they're raising lines much more on human better behavior. But we're sitting here with books that we're sitting here with models that are just like, that line is horrible. We're gonna crush it, and sure enough, that was correct, right? So I think I had 26, which again, had they scored another touchdown, it would have basically been correct. So
Yeah, this is barely not a play for me. I actually had just my model had it at 13, which actually seems a little conservative since this is, unofficially the Liberty is a Menace podcast. If I would just, if you threw away my model and asked me to make a line, I would have probably made it closer to 18 or 20. But at this point, I'm not gonna, I have enough data to not to know better than
oh,
to argue
actually,
with my.
that's right. I had 19.8. I had 36 to 16. So that's actually kind of very close. That's actually very close to what the result was, because it was
Yeah.
31 to 13. So wow, that's sometimes the model scares me, guys. Actually, like it does. Um,
All right, and this next one, this is kind of in the same. I think you make a really good point. You know, I don't kind of want to be presumptuous, but I do think I know Conference USA better than bookmakers. I just do. I think they, I guess the other thing too is they just kind of have, maybe to your point, I think that a lot of the times, and this drives me nuts when I hear, I don't know, you make a living doing this, but when when your clients are laying minus 110, you can do this. They just have a number. And it seems like it's just a number they kind of carry in their head. And it might move 1 point or 2 points depending on a result, rather than, and you rethink everything every week based on all the cumulative data that changes and all that implies against the prior events too. And I don't know if they're doing that or not. I can't see because their numbers are so stated. And I think, to bring it back to this next one, UTEP minus 1.5 at FIU. Um, I just, this doesn't seem right to me at all. And, we're going to talk about this later in the plays, but FIU, you've got an absolute, here we go again. I'm sorry. This is not the crap on the guy, but it seems to be. You clearly have some of the Grayson James exit game, that horrible negative 155 apex that's dragging down a lot of their stats. Great. He's not on their team. Throw it out. And I don't know, do you think these bookmakers actually know the significance of that and how good his backup is?
so this is actually even worse. I got away with bloody murder on this line. Guess what I got FIU at?
Um, don't say like 3.
3.5.
Oh my gosh. That's just ridiculous.
I got 3.5 spread and money line. So I'm sitting here like, okay, I don't like
Yeah.
it's over. And this is the thing, right? Like, no, 100%. Like, I think, and now see, the thing is, again, this is the same thing. FIU, bad early season, got crushed by a Liberty team that just barely beat Sam Houston. Oh, guys, I don't know. Liberty may not be that good. Maybe them beating FIU isn't that good. Well, guess what? Liberty just pounded Jacksonville State. So
Mm-hmm.
now it's like, oh, maybe Liberty actually is good. So maybe Liberty crushing FIU means FIU isn't actually that bad, and UTEP is actually that bad. So now, I don't even. This might be something. I don't even know what this is. Let me see what this is right now. Maybe this is literally moving as we speak. Yep, Florida International -2, right? So the books have realized,
Yeah.
oh shoot, we have a massive liability here.
Yeah.
We should get out of this one.
Yeah. And, I guess the thing is that I think I know this better than the books because you had the crap game. Then you had 3 really good games in a row from FIU. Really good games from a brand new quarterback. And then what did you have? They got crushed by Liberty. Guess what? Liberty would do that to a lot of teams. That doesn't mean you're bad. It means that you're a football team that's not a Power 5 really good team. That's all what that means. Great. You play in Conference USA. I can forgive that. And then what I said in part 1 about FIU losing by 2 scores at New Mexico State. It was the quarterback's first conference road game against an underrated New Mexico State team. I can toss those. Maybe this is the horse racing guy in me really quickly and just say, all right, they were in a stakes race. They're not stakes horses, and they just had they were on the wrong track. Toss them. If I go back to 3, 4, 5 races ago, this is a quality horse. They were just misspotted for 2 games. Just they were up against it. I, I don't know. What'd you say it's at? Is it 2.5 now?
It's Florida International -2 now. Like this line is completely
Yeah,
jumped the
yeah,
ship.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I bet it goes across 3 by the time it kicks,
Yeah, I think
because that's
before I
when
go
it
to
really
bed
moves
tonight, I'm
us.
gonna. Let me.
Yeah.
I might just bet that right now. Actually, while we're talking about the next point, because like
Okay.
it's moving that fast, right? So yeah, it's 2.5 in another book. Yeah, yeah. Okay,
Okay.
I'm gonna bet
All
that now.
right.
You talk. I'm gonna.
Stanford at Colorado. This is, I think, the first time I've actually. I bring this up because this one actually makes sense to me. This feels like the first game that I feel that the market actually has a sense for what Colorado is. You know, they were just making stabs through the Oregon game. Clearly, the USC game was just there was just a lot of Caleb Williams in that number and not any kind of reality. But I think you didn't really know because you had such divergent results. I think with Colorado, showing well against USC, especially in the second half, and then showing again at Arizona State, basically at the same level as USC, winning in a 1-score game at ASU, same opponent at the same venue. I think that the market knows what Colorado is, and this number kind of makes sense to me. I'm not going to bet it because it seems right. I don't even see what I have it as, but that's the real reason I wouldn't bet it. But I just brought this up because it feels right. It just seems like the first time market knows what it's doing. You have it the same way.
I
I've got them. My model has a 13.5.
I got 28, which seems a bit too high, but I kind of do like Colorado, and I think Stanford's defense is not good. I think this model is saying, okay, USC and Colorado played in a shootout. USC eviscerated Stanford, therefore Colorado should eviscerate Stanford less, but still eviscerate them. And I think now I think I got this at
Yeah.
I think I got this under 10. I think I got this at either 8 or 9. I think it was 9. So I have this already. But man, it's just like I worry about stuff like this. This could be like a Shedeur Sanders over maybe. I will say though that like the last 2 weeks, Kenny Dillingham there at Arizona State has actually been doing some stuff. That team might not be horrible in another next year, right? So
Yeah.
I don't. I think a lot of people are knocking Stanford because of that. And I think there's going to be, but again, people are going to always be on Colorado. And I'm not sure. I may have already cashed, or I might need Colorado to win this week to win my Colorado over win total bet. So I'm not sure. But either way, I like they've got a lot of games against teams that are not as good as USC and Oregon. So I feel confident about that.
Yeah, and this isn't, the purpose of this, but you brought up something that's interesting, and I only thought about it when you said it. Arizona State this year reminds me a lot of Arizona under the first year under Jed Fish, where the talent isn't there, but the buy-in is 110%. It's exactly like it, even back to like the very fraught quarterback position where you're looking at a Bourget and a Drew Pine. It's just like those horrible quarterbacks that Arizona had their first year. Gunner Cruz and some other guy that was just horrible. And my guy Jordan McLeod got like 5 snaps. It's very disappointing. All right, Iowa State at Cincinnati. I think Iowa State is kind of ahead of schedule here. Their defense is good. They beat TCU, and maybe TCU is coming back to earth. And maybe this is just saying that Cincinnati is okay. It's equal on neutral field. I just think Iowa State's better, and the quarterback is brand new. He was Beck is his name. He's improving quite a bit, and maybe I talk about it. Maybe the drawback is okay. It's a road conference game, and this is where he kind of soils himself a little bit. But this just seemed short to me. Again, not my
It's up.
model, but
Yeah, it's up to
good.
5. I'm looking at this live. It is up to 5, but even then, that like 3.5 is like kind of the same as a 5. It's not that different.
What
Like that
Cincinnati's up to 5?
-5. Yeah, Cincinnati's up to -5.
Yeah.
But that
See, and I just think Iowa State's a better team. My model actually has them better by a field goal here too.
I have Cincinnati by a touchdown, so that the fact that we're both differing on that means I'm just not going to touch this.
Okay.
Um, I will say though that Ames, Iowa specifically is a really weird place to play. I think that people going there, it's the same kind of thing as Wyoming. Because my model, I'm not sure if your model does it just for home field. I think I need to start doing that for some stuff. I'm gonna figure out how to do that in the off season. Um, but I think it does have an impact, and especially some of these places, like for example, New Mexico State vastly outperformed the spread last week when people like who wants to go to New Mexico State, right? Wyoming, same thing. Fresno State, right? They clearly underperformed what they should. They should not have lost to Wyoming, but they did, right? Ames, Iowa is another place. So if Iowa plays really good at home, when we put that in the average, maybe Iowa looks better or maybe worse than they would in aggregate, right? So that's something interesting to look at. Again, fun fact: guess who travels to Iowa State in a couple of weeks? They're Longhorns, right? So watch out for that game.
Yeah.
That is a game that no matter what my model says, I will not touch it, but I will watch it with sick fascination, like a moth at a flame, because anything could happen, and that could be that loss that gets me. That because I also have Texas under 10.5 too. Now they have other teams that they have to play too. I think they have to play TCU, but TCU isn't that good. But you never know. Sometimes these guys could. They got one last shot at Texas before they go to the SEC. I think some of these teams are gonna. Some teams that aren't as bad as some of the other ones they've played. They're gonna use their shot, right? Especially one of the lower ones. Like Kansas is fine because Kansas is a school where it's like, hey, we're actually good at basketball, so we're okay if you beat us here because we're good at we beat you in basketball anyway. But like Iowa State, yeah, okay. TCU, okay. This is like these are like not good schools in sports, and they're gonna love the fact that they can take out Texas in this. So yeah, I don't want to touch this. I think the fact that we have two different things means you don't touch this.
Yeah. Fair. I don't understand this next one at all. JMU only given 3.5 to Georgia Southern. Now I'm not saying my stats are the be all end all, but God, JMU. Let me just kind of skip back here real quick. I have them in the top 20 for, yeah, they're number 20 in my power ratings, and I have them top 5 in strength of record. And again, I'm not saying that I'm just the smartest guy on the walk the planet Earth, but it just, God, there's not like I'm making these numbers up. And again, K Ford has them as a top 20 team in strength of record too. I mean, they're so much better than Georgia Southern. That struck me as crazy. And I don't know if I forget because I'm old and I forget stuff, but I've got them, 12 points better than Southern. In this spot, I don't know what I'm missing.
Yeah, my model
Southern
weirdly has
throws
the
for a lot.
opposite. I
Okay.
weirdly have the opposite. I have Georgia Southern better by 11. That's very
How
weird.
about this? Do you have interception rate in your model? Maybe
Yeah,
because this guy throws a ton of picks. Davis Brin, he was at Tulsa. He's got the whole Grant Wells likes to throw it to the other team guy virus.
mm-hmm.
I think he had 5 at Wisconsin.
Yeah. I've got 45% chance of him throwing 2+ interceptions.
There you go. Yeah, this just looks short to me, but you actually have Georgia Southern winning straight up.
Yeah, it's very weird. That's enough for me to not because I actually do like James Madison. That's enough for me to not touch it.
Okay. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, kind of going back to the Colorado thing. Your model kind of almost, it seems like, goes exponential with these great quarterbacks with great numbers, and there might be a little bit of that where because Bryn throws for a ton of yards, but man, I don't know, I can't see it. All right, Toledo given
That
fifth.
actually is something. I'll just quickly point out that is something
Yeah,
I kind of agree with. I think maybe because I think specifically Caleb Williams has broken the model in many places. I
yeah.
think, and I think even to a lesser extent Joe Milton has with Tennessee and some of these other ones. And I think there is some pieces, and even in the NFL model where I think I think for some I think the defenses are being undervalued, and I think you see that when you look at total plays. Because it's weird. When my model says under, it's an underplay. When my model says over, it's not necessarily an overplay.
Yeah,
And like,
yeah.
because I've noticed that with the NFL, if my model says it's an underplay, you play the under. You just absolutely
Mm-hmm.
pound that under because it's correct. And even if everybody else is saying it's over, it's like, no, my model's right. It's under. But if my model says over, yeah, be careful of that, right? So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think I think another update for the model in the future is going to have to give the defense some teeth here and maybe clamp down on some of these on some of these quarterbacks and figure out why it's now. Now it's good reason, and I'd rather have a model that says a good quarterback is better than a not good quarterback. I don't
Yep.
hate that, but I think there's still a little. Sometimes it's a bridge too far, and I think that needs to be clamped down on in the offseason. Maybe give the defense
No.
some
Yeah.
teeth.
And that's why I think our models go well together, because I've got this luck that there's a high correspondence to quarterbacks. So there's some kind of magic, good quarterback magic that I'm missing out on. So that's why
Mm-hmm.
the joint plays work, or the dual model plays work. But as a reminder, yeah, USC did not score 103 at Arizona State, as your model predicted.
Yes,
Um, yeah, the next one's interesting. Toledo minus 15.5 at Ball State. This is one of those classic. I don't get the total and the line. I can see Toledo giving 15.5. I can't see the total being 52.5 because, let me do the math here, 37. I can't see Ball State scoring 18 points. They're just not that good. Toledo's defense is not what it usually is, but Ball State's offense is just a joke. I can't see this one going close to 52.5, unless DeQuan Finn just has, like, the game of his life here.
that is. I do. That's fair. I do actually weirdly have the over, but maybe that's a bit too high on DeQuan Finn. But I only have DeQuan Finn throwing for 192 yards. I have them getting this done on the ground. So, um, yeah,
Let me see, Ball State. Yeah, Ball State is actually, yeah, they're like, and it looks like they're nationally like bottom 15 or so in offense. And again, Toledo's defense is not their usual standard, but I don't know. I can't see Ball State keeping up their side. That, yeah, I said I'm going to not play team totals, but that might be something to keep an eye on. Maybe just if you can get it, because that says that implies 18. I think if you can get below 20 for Ball State, that'd be something to jump on there. And this last one, okay, Wake Forest giving one at Virginia Tech. I'm kind of just using stupid transitive logic here. I'm going back to this to saying you just played Clemson within 4 points, and you're only giving one to lowly Virginia Tech. Has Virginia Tech won a game yet?
they
Have they
beat
beaten
Pitt.
an FBS team? Oh, that's okay. Maybe that's does that
That might be it though. It's
okay.
not been good.
All right. That
So
no,
currently,
it's
Wake
not. And
Forest
I
is actually
think
an underdog.
I can't believe that. And maybe I don't know. It just maybe I would think there'd be a little more juice in Wake Forest playing Clemson at Clemson to within 4 points. And maybe this is a legitimate line. Maybe this is speaking more to God. Clemson is really, on the struggle bus. Maybe that's the takeaway is here.
It could be that. It could also be the books are overvaluing Florida State, right? Because if the books think Florida State's really, really good, the fact that they did cover the spread against Florida State and they ran for 6 yards rush against Florida State. But remember, our model says Florida State's rush defense is horrible. So therefore, right?
Yeah. I. Yeah. Yeah.
So I've got Wake Forest minus 12. So 12 and a half. 12.4. So
That
I've got Wake
seems.
Forest, but
Yeah.
that seems correct actually. That seems like a correct statement.
Yeah. It
Um,
does.
but I almost wonder if at some point they're just kind of like, yeah, no, we have no idea if Wake Forest I think they think that Clemson is I think they think Clemson is bad, but Virginia Florida State is really really good. And I think when they think that, then it means that they say, okay, well, you covered against Florida State, so therefore you're actually not bad. But then now, the spreads were functionally the same. I mean, there's 2 point bigger spread um, for Florida State versus Virginia Tech than Clemson. Now, again, it's not transitive property, but they were functionally Florida State and Clemson functionally played to a draw. They didn't go to overtime, right? So you'd say they functionally equal. So whatever that, but Wake Forest not only was the spread cover was never in doubt. They also almost won that game, but Virginia was never competitive in that game, and they did cover the spread, but they barely covered the spread. and they could
Yeah.
have easily lost that game like 50-10. So I think that I'm playing Wake Forest here. I don't care. Yeah, done.
Yeah,
I'm not
I'm not
overthinking
playing.
it.
Yeah, I think, yeah, again, I think that this might be just kind of like speaking more to Clemson than these two teams. Also, I think there's an element of kind of the mushy middle of the lower class of the ACC here. And they just said, okay, you guys figure it out. We'll just put a point here and let the market dictate.
Yeah.
All right, deeper dives. So I've referred to, it's about to end for Marshall for a while, and I was just totally flummoxed by why they keep on having like the top pass defense in all of FBS. So I wanted to figure out what exactly are we looking at here. So here's kind of the big picture on them. They're 3-1 against FBS teams. They're 1-0 in the very good. Remember, I have as an average, the Sun Belt is an average FBS conference, the best of the group of five. Like I said, their defensive apex is first in FBS. It's a 9, which is nuts. And their head coach, Charles Huff, is, his background is as a running back coach, Alabama, Mississippi State, Penn State, and Western Michigan. So here's a breakdown of their FBS games so far. I kind of really missed just how bad their opponents are so far. East Carolina, this is like, their power rating is like bottom 10 nationally. Virginia Tech, we thought, we said, okay, great, you beat them, but they're not that good. I mean, they're rated 81st in all of FBS. Old Dominion, nice win. Actually, this goes back to like I don't understand Old Dominion. I got to see a game to understand what's going on. Great, you beat them. All credit to you. They were losing for a lot of that game. And NC State is actually sneaky bad. They're rated 100th, which is probably one of the worst of your FBS or your Power 5 teams. They actually lost that game. This is where it gets really interesting. So this is basically saying, based on how each team played in that game, what is the post game win probability, for Marshall based on how each team played? Yeah, you dominated a horrible East Carolina team. Great, good for you. You actually were completely outplayed by Virginia Tech. You just got lucky to win that one. You were outplayed even worse by Old Dominion. You actually had a 28% win probability based on how you played. And then you actually did lose legitimately to NC State. So you've got two horrible wins here. I've also just basically said, kind of following on my strength of record, I've said, okay, well, how would the average FBS team do against each of these teams here? And you can see that basically especially in this Virginia Tech win, they way, way underperformed your typical FBS team. And again, NC State, they way overperformed. So, their win plus against an average, their strength of record win plus is almost a one negative game. And they've got a pretty high luck ratio here too. Basically, you've got 3 wins and it should be 2, so you've got over 1 game of luck. Which, not to spoil what's coming up, usually that corresponds to good quarterback play. Guess what? They don't have it here. So I'm looking at what do we have, going forward, what do we have to expect? So what they've played to date, the average opponent's offensive rating is a negative 6.1. I've put in red the teams that they have left that are better than the average opponent they faced so far. Guess what? Every offense that they have to play for the rest of the season is better than this average that they've played so far. So the water gets a lot deeper on the defensive end. They're going to catch a little bit of break in playing some easier offenses. It's not that huge a difference, 2 points. JMU is not going to be easy in South Alabama. These are really good defenses. And the opponent total rating, again, their next 6 games are against opponents that are significantly better than what they faced on average so far too. And I've just got the FBS ranked too. So they're playing, they've played on average the 90th ranked overall team. That's going to go to a 61 for opponents going forward. And just I've got Marshall's rating here just to show, look, their power rating is a 5.3 and their average future opponents is a plus 1.4. So, basically before you get to venue adjustments, they're on average almost a touchdown worse than in every game on average.
Mm-hmm.
So the water's going to get really, really deep for them, starting with my guy Darren Granger at Georgia State. Getting specific to their number one ranking in defensive apex, it just didn't sit right with me. So I wanted to see, well, who have they actually played? So of their four FBS opponents, hey, I'm not going to crap on anybody for actually, um, you know, having the number one defensive apex, but there needs to be a lot of context here. East Carolina has the second worst passing offense in all of FBS. I don't even know who's worse. I don't know. I don't want to speculate, but 7 is a joke. That is horrible. 82 is not good, even if you're a Sun Belt team. So, these are below average as well. And then NC State is sneakily horrible, 35. So they've played a team, the average offense they've played has an apex of 52. That gets you on the bum list. It's like on average they've played 4 bum list members so far this season. And again, good job having the number one pass defense, but I want to say it's expected, but I'm not giving you a lot of extra points for that. This is a horrible slate of passing offenses that they've faced. So, what are they facing going forward? Well, my gosh, look at this. Look at the apex rating of these teams going forward. 133 and 137. 87 is even higher than anything they faced so far. 77 is kind of on par with the two good ones that they're the two best that they faced, which are still below average. South Alabama, again, with that guy who's number 4 on the Ryan list. I forget his name, but there's something going on there. And then Arkansas State, I've got an asterisk here because they made a change at quarterback. Jalen Naylor is their new quarterback. He's a freshman. So this is his apex rating, 191. And that includes a game against, I think they just played Troy. So it's not like he's got a bunch of fluff in there. He's actually played a legitimate offense. He's probably not on 191. I don't think he's as good as Michael Penix, but definitely there's some skill there. So I think that this, I don't know if it's going to go away in one fell swoop, but I don't expect to see Marshall in the top 30 or even 40 in defensive apex rating at season's end. They're going to face some weaker rushing offenses here, but, okay, great. Sorry, go ahead.
No, yeah, I agree. I've got them as 9-point dogs to Georgia State this week, and they are actually currently a 1-point dog, so there's definitely some value there. So.
Yeah, let me see what I've got. Then what happens is I make this whole screed about this, and I probably have it I probably have it even. Who are they playing? Southern. Where is that game?
Georgia State.
You have your things backwards. Okay, let me see if I can find that. Where do I have it at? There we go. Yeah, I've got Georgia State by 7.5. You got them by 9.5. You said, yeah,
9.
Makes sense.
Yeah,
yeah. So, I think it's about to turn here. So, overall, here's their resume within the division and conference. So in the East, there's 7 teams. They're actually 7th of 7 in offense. 7th of 7 in defense. The only thing that is even kind of hopeful is their pass defense, which is first. So their total power rating is last. This is interesting. They have a big, they're second in luck rating in the Sun Belt East. Out of 14 teams in the entire Sun Belt, which includes some real turds, especially in the West, they're 11th in offense, again, 11th in defense, 11th in total, but they're second in luck. I don't see that being sustainable because if I look at their apex play, just skipping ahead a little bit, Cam Fancher, I pointed out before this season that he stinks. At least he stunk last season. He's actually stunk worse so far this season. He was a 76 apex last season, down to a 72. The real purpose here was to show, okay, Doc Holliday, his last season, coaching Marshall, they were not good on offense, but they at least passed the ball with some semblance of competence here. Huff comes in and he moves the offense up by a good amount, almost 8 points. Great. That is great. And the apex goes up a little bit. This is where it gets really concerning for me. Now he gets his own guy that he hasn't been coached by a really good guy in Holiday. We have the offense takes a big step back, and the apex is stuck in the 70s. That's a big concern. I've seen so many instances from Larry Coker to you name it about, okay, guy A comes in and does a good job with the talent that was developed by somebody else. And then when it's his own talent, look out below. This is what look out below looks like. And what's really concerning here is to go back to what I said in the, at the start. He's a former running backs coach. He's an offensive guy. You shouldn't be having this kind of problems on the offensive side of the ball at this point. You should not be consistently sucking at passing the ball. So why do I bring this up? Aside from luck is going to run out soon here. Hey, Brett McMurphy, God bless you. He says Charles Huff is a candidate for the Michigan State job. Guess what? Haven't I been saying this for like a year and a half now about you've got a defensive coordinator who's now, the only strength of his only good team was offense. It's literally like they're going to make the same mistake again. I don't know what they're thinking. My gosh. I kind of went off on this on Dylan's pod yesterday. But the lack of just kind of any kind of analysis that identifies these kind of just misses is unreal. I can't believe he's a candidate for this job. And I've heard a lot of people say, oh, he's going to get a good job soon. I don't know. Not saying it's not going to happen, but I think it's going to be a much harder hire to make based on the schedule that we see coming up and what I expect to see happening with that one little thing, that good pass defense and luck, which is going to run out because they don't have the quarterback to support it. I think it really goes down the elevator shaft by the end of November here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with that assessment. I think there's a pretty good chance here that Michigan State could just completely screw this up and hire an autocrat coach to replace. I think it's probably better than not a chance, to be honest. I mean, looking at this list, okay, Mike Elko, good, thumbs up.
Yep.
Dan Enos, Arkansas, that's kind of iffy. Matt House,
no,
LSU.
No, iffy's way too generous. Let's go on. Okay. Let's not forget. Yeah, they've been on that updates about how bad their running game is for weeks now. Sorry, go on.
Matt House, LSU defensive coordinator. That's shocking. The thing that's making LSU lose games is going to get him the head coaching job at Michigan State. Okay, Charles Huff, okay, yeah, theoretically, surface level turnaround a program, but under the surface, there's some concerns there. That's a problem. Pat Narduzzi, what? This makes no sense. What? Because Pitt won the ACC 3 years ago? Really? That's enough to get him the head coaching job at a Big Ten school, which is functionally a lateral move?
Well, he was an assistant there, yeah, which apparently means everything.
And Mike Tressel, Wisconsin, D.C., their defense has been pretty good. There hasn't been really any problems with Wisconsin's defense. Their problems are a bit more on offense, but I guess that's okay. I'm not like, wow, but like Elko, but like again though, like this is like Elko is good, but outside of this, everything else is decidedly iffy to outright horrible, and so.
Yeah, that House.
Concerns.
I mean, at that point, just put Alex Grinch on the list too. I mean, you might as well. So, okay, let's go. I missed the no's here. This is interesting.
So we're gonna for my deeper dive. It's about the midseason. It's time to talk about the Heisman favorites. So I just basically found the first kind of blocks for Heisman favorites here on Bet365. Now, I went down here because I wanted to include Jalen Milroe. I didn't want to go too far. But yeah, Jalen Milroe is an interesting one there. I think that's 100-1, it looks like. I mean, if Bama were to run the table, beat Georgia, and then somehow, but see, the problem is the top three are really hard to get around. Because if one of them emerges unscathed and undefeated, whichever team that is that person will probably win the Heisman, right? But there's a path for Jalen Milroe, but it's not great. Shedeur Sanders, no, that ship sailed. Riley Leonard, he's literally injured. He's week to week. That's not a good bet at all. Also, they're probably going to lose to someone else that's going to eliminate them. DJ LaCalahai, they already lost to Washington State. Oregon State's got some other tough teams to play. That's not going to happen. Kyle McCord, I kind of leave this as a not no because theoretically he could get better, and if they actually figure out how to score points, maybe, and win the Big Ten. But I don't think this team is that good. I think this team is probably worse than Penn State. even though my model doesn't have that, it's because of weird knock-on effects of people who Penn State have beaten turning out to be horrible. Doesn't mean Penn State's bad. It just means that according to my model, it's diminishing. Cam Ward, no. Washington State's going to collapse at some point. They kind of already did when they lost to UCLA. They're going to play someone good and then they're going to lose. Marvin Harrison Jr., I don't really like that one. That's kind of very iffy as well. Drew Aller, I don't hate it, but the problem is the fact that, like, again, we're running into the same issue of Washington, USC, Oregon. Whoever wins that is probably could potentially win the Heisman. So you need some chaos happening there. Sam Hartman, no, they've already lost 2 games. I don't even know why he's 66. This is just Irish fans betting on things. Carson Beck, again, no. No one, like, okay, he had 1 good game. Good for him. Does not mean he's not going to win the Heisman. Georgia's problems are still there. They didn't just fix them all just by deciding to beat Kentucky one time. Blake Corum, maybe. I mean, but the thing is, Michigan's going to have to sweep. They're going to have to beat Penn State and Ohio State, and then maybe you can. They seem to be taking the ball away from McCarthy, which is kind of interesting because he's starting to be talked about as a first round pick in the NFL, which is weird because people are like, oh, we don't like quarterbacks who are very conservative with the ball like Kirk Cousins, but literally JJ McCarthy is Kirk Cousins. So I don't know why, but I think Blake Corum should probably be the favorite over McCarthy, and maybe they're putting him there because of injury concern, but you're looking at a point or two of difference there between 33 to 1 and 50 to 1 anyways. Brock Bowers, no, they're not going to give it to the tight end. That's against their religion. Jaden Daniels, he's injured. I don't know why he's at 33 to 1. Quinn Ewers, no. Texas is going to lose.
No. That's Jaden Daniels is the LSU guy.
Oh, okay. They've already lost 2 games, so they're out. I don't know why he's at 33 to 1. Like, they're going to lose another game to someone, and they're probably going to beat Bama, but then lose to someone else, so that's not there. Quinn Ewers, they're going to lose a random game at some point too. Drake May 18 to 1. This one's kind of interesting. If North Carolina was to beat the next team, whether it's actually Jordan Travis at 16 to 1, if they were to beat them and then go undefeated through the ACC, there might be a path there. Like, I think if the path is if like Oregon goes undefeated through USC Washington, and then it's Drake May versus Bo Nix for the Heisman. I think, and if North Carolina were to beat Miami and then beat Clemson and then beat Florida State in the ACC championship game, and then maybe if all 3 beat each other up, there's a chance they could win. Or theoretically, Drake May could just look amazing the rest of the year when people are paying attention. Like 18 to 1 is not bad for Drake May. Like the reason I said you can't bet Drake May early in the season was because their defense was going to let them down at some point. But now that may not necessarily be the case. So that's a potential play. Jordan Travis, I don't see it. I'm worried about this Florida State team. I think they're going to drop a game somewhere. Dylan Gabriel, I actually already have this at 18 to 1, and I like it, but at 12 to 1, I think it's a bit too rich. Bo Nix is not bad. I think Oregon's the better team, but again, you're betting on basically chaos to happen. Yeah, 6 to 1 is a bit too short. If that was 12 to 1, I'd be all over it, but 6 is too short. And then Penix Jr. and Caleb Williams, I think I don't know who wins in this matchup. I think Washington does, which is why he's favored. I think the books are basically saying Washington's a better team, but I think Oregon's better than both of them. So I don't know. That's why I kind of don't hate the Drake May angle. If like Drake May if he keeps running for 400 yards and 3 touchdowns for the next like 6 weeks, I think he could win potentially. But that's my take on it. I'm just very iffy on Jordan Travis. I think Florida State is due for a loss, probably a bad loss at some point. But I don't know. I think May is playable. I think Corum is playable. Aller is playable. Dylan Gabriel, the ship may have sailed in, but I think Bo Nix, the ship has sailed already. But I think those are your bets for it. And then you just hope for chaos in the Pac-12, and then maybe you can cash someone who's not one of those 3. If that makes sense.
Yeah, but that price on Bo Nix, the path is there. It's just that price strikes me as kind of like the after they beat Washington rather than before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just don't know if there's value there. I don't know. I'm biased, but man, we've talked a couple times about Ohio State doesn't. It's interesting. I'll put it this way: the path for beating Ohio State is much greater than you're going to get credit for if you do beat them. You'll be treated as if you beat an almost defending national champion, which you kind of did, even though there's serious gaps in the Ohio State resume. I think that makes Aller a huge value. the path is kind of small there, but it's there. It's there. You do get Ohio State and Michigan. You do have the opportunities. Um, I have no reason to. I'll put it this way: for teams that can make it, with 0-1 losses, I would put Penn State's resume up there with literally any team in the country. I'm not saying they're the best team, but in terms of like ending with the best headline record, I'd put Penn State right there. I'd put it ahead of Ohio State right now. I think Penn State can go toe to toe with Michigan a lot better than Ohio State can. I'll put it that way too.
Yeah.
I'm probably gonna just grab some Aller here.
Yeah, I'm gonna get some more Aller too. 66-1 is too high. This is where this gets complicated because I think it's gonna be on someone who makes the college football playoff. And I think for Penn State to make the college football play, like for anybody who has a loss, I think you just have to hope one team just goes, like you have to hope for no chaos in the Pac-12. They get one of their three in, and then that's it. Because, like, at what point? Because, like, if it's like, okay, we have like, if somehow like, if or it's actually because they all three play each other, so you can't really have this. But like, if Oregon goes undefeated, beats one of Washington or USC twice, the other one the other time, then that's it. They're in the playoff, and then that eliminates both USC and Washington. Done. But at what point is it like? Because the thing is, then assuming Penn State or Michigan or Ohio State or Florida State or North Carolina or Georgia or Alabama, at what point are you, if you're not your conference champion, at what point does a one loss? Because basically you have to hope the Pac-12 gets their team in, and you have to hope for chaos in some other conferences, and then you have to basically say, okay, because at what point does like a one-loss Pac-12 champion get in ahead of a non-conference champion? Right, that's the problem. Like an undefeated conference champion will get in ahead of a one-loss, So you basically need to win your conference, and I think like Drew Aller at 66-1, and then hope for some chaos in the Pac-12, maybe because again, even if Oregon was to win the Pac-12 and like lose a game there, and then win the Pac-12, because if it was like 2-1 lost teams in the Pac-12 championship game, then yeah, I think Drew Aller could actually win the Heisman, and then that's a hedge against. Yeah, I kind of like Aller and May. I think those are the best options. Like
Yeah.
Travis is too short. Gabriel is interesting. If he goes undefeated, he'll be going to New York as well. But yeah, it's very in flux, and I think you can hedge out some future bets this way as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, and one of the challenges is to not overhedge and just wind up where you're kind of looking at a 2-year treasury at best case.
Yes.
All right. Buck the bookie game. Are you
Yes.
feeling inclined to do anything more here?
I've done a lot, and I like the results
Yeah.
so far, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I'm good.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's good. Nothing this week.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. Okay. So here's our plays last week. I kind of did some rough math, and if basically you'd followed all the plays, you would be looking at a 20% ish, a little bit over that ROI. I had a good week, and you can see it's the totals actually were, as usual, very what I go 3-1, which is that's my game. The totals. My gosh, 4-0. 4+0 with that Oklahoma money line bet. The dual model got up to above 500 after a kind of whatever first week. The preseason upsets that we called, I actually came through on Iowa State over TCU this week. Colorado State over Boise. Actually, there's two other ones here. Georgia State over Marshall. I'm feeling good about that. I didn't highlight that. This one I just crapped on, so I'm not really feeling good about Ball State since I don't think they're going to score more than 10 points. So maybe hoping to grab one or two of these preseason calls on that one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then Brandon Moore last week he had Texas A&M over Bama. That one didn't cash.
Yeah. Sorry, I missed that.
Again, you get credit here again. Remember we said before, Georgia State is the favorite over Marshall. So you called an upset that is no longer an upset now. Technically, it's just happening. So just the
Yeah.
expected result now. So that's some credit there.
Thank you. All right. So the last slide, the big one. Yeah, and you actually, this has moved actually. Well, you grabbed this when it was better, so you've got this. I grabbed this as well. The FIU we talked about. You grabbed this before the grown up lines, we'll say, came out. Um, New Mexico State, we both, I don't know. I think this might be your model getting carried away with our guy, Diego Pavia,
Yeah.
57-point difference. Although I'll use it as confirmatory of my model liking this by 12. So dual model play there. I think I've grabbed that.
One thing I
Yeah.
will say is that for my model, it what it does is now that there's enough data points, it takes away the minimum, like the basically in a team's data set, it takes away the best data point, it takes away the worst data point.
Mm,
So now, Sam Houston State's best game just doesn't exist. So that's why it's like, and
that
also
makes
New
sense.
Mexico
Okay.
State's bad games doesn't exist either.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, Sam Houston State, that horrible team that has never done better than being a horrible team.
Yeah. Um, all right. Michigan State at Rutgers. Actually, you actually have liked Rutgers more than I do. So this is a dual model play. That was very comforting. I didn't know, but yeah, I think Michigan State is sneakily still. I don't think people are realizing just how much the bottom's fallen out here. And Rutgers is not as bad as people are thinking. We're on different sides of the total on Arkansas, Alabama. I'm still playing that since my model is really good on unders. Not playing. Actually, no, I am playing Georgia since they're an elite defense, and the margin here is. I don't know if that's still at 56.5. Do you have a total on that? I haven't grabbed totals yet. My guy hasn't dropped
Georgia and
totals yet.
Vanderbilt.
Yeah.
56, still 56, yeah.
Okay, I'll play that then, since it's 5 is kind of the break point for the elite defenses. Um, yeah, you actually, I think I screwed this up. No, I didn't. Yeah, you have Cal. We were talking about, and I don't know if you probably have one of those guys that can't throw the ball at quarterback for Cal, as do I. But I've got this margin of 12, and you've got a margin of like what's a 23. So I was a little nervous, and then when I saw your what you came at, this is very comforting. So I've grabbed that dual model play there. Um, yeah, I explain this next one here, Professor. 39.5, huh? I don't know if there's a total of 39 in this game, considering
Yeah.
how much Army likes to drain the clock.
So what this is, and you can see it. So right now, Bryson, no, oh, okay, Troy. So when you see when my model spits out like a massive, like not like a 10 or 15 or 20, an absolutely uh, massive spread like that. What happens is the model it simulates, it basically calls plays based on basically a model. So it's basically like an AI kind of. It's more linear regression, but based on the score, how much time is left, where the ball is placed. So
Mm.
what happens is, as a game becomes more and more of a blowout. So
Uh,
what happens? So what happens is it's based off of NFL play calling. There is an adjustment in there because generally um, some college football teams run a bit more than NFL teams or pass a bit more. So there's some adjustments for that. But what happens is you'll find that as you get deeper into college games, like as you get deeper into NFL games, if they have a big lead, it's just over. It's done. They only ever run the ball. But what happens is in college games, they will still pass the ball. They are much more open to passing the ball because they're just like, whatever, like, okay, we're only up 2 scores. We need to do something. In the NFL, you're up 2 scores. You're like, that's it. We're done. We're done scoring. That's it. Game over. But in college, they're more aggressive on that. So what happens is I only have Troy getting 121 passing yards. So my best guess is that with Army, the result against Boston College, where they ran for 1 billion yards against them, basically makes the model think that Army is horrible at defending against the run. So as the
mm,
game gets more and more of a blowout, what happens is then the model says, okay, Troy's just going to run the ball, but oh wait, Army is horrible at running the ball. So then you start getting massive rushing breakouts. Like then it's basically like, oh, they're running for like 8 yards of play and stuff, like just explosive runs all over the place. And the thing is, where sometimes they'll put backups in or something like that. It just it keeps snowballing and snowballing. And like I think if you probably go here, let me see here. What are Troy's running backs? What are my over under for their running backs here? Yeah, I have Troy's main running back getting 278 rushing yards. So now, obviously, they'd stop him at some point in there. They'd be like, "Okay, you're done." But this is the point, right? It's like at a certain point, they just pull the guy and say, "Okay, you don't need to keep running the ball anymore. We'll have backups do it that are worse." But this is the problem. It's like you run for that, then yeah, you're going to cover that number, right? So the problem, it's a problem, and this is one of the reasons why in the off season I'm going to work to get college football game play-by-play data so that I can build the AI better for each team. But for right now, because it's based off that base NFL one, where the second they get massive leads, they just start running. They only run the ball. It's causing some of these blowouts, especially against teams that are bad against the run. So
That makes sense. And you spoke of snowballing. I think that there's an element of snowballing in this next total of yours at 96 and a half. So yeah, I'll play the under there. So I'm a little bit, this is one of those things that's weird. Oregon's an elite offense and defense. So I'm not really, the elite defense is great, but I feel kind of weird playing an under when they have an elite offense. You have two elite offenses here. I'll probably play that for like half a unit. We both like USF here a lot more. I don't understand, I don't understand what happened at AFU against Tulsa last week, but I don't understand. USF just had one off game against UAB, and maybe there's just a lot being read into that, and FAU actually winning. But our models are really close on this one. We have a 10.5 and 11 USF over FAU. Did you play that one yet?
I don't think I have, no, but I do like USF. I do like USF there, yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna. Yeah, actually, I'll still play this for since this is like a special here. Iowa at Wisconsin, the 37.5. I'm projecting 32. You are optimistically at 40.5. You comfortable with that one? You think there's gonna be 40 on the board there?
I mean, I see. What do I have that score at? I can see a scenario where Wisconsin just blows them out, right? Like I have
Iowa?
Wisconsin. Yeah, I mean, at a certain point, they're just gonna like Wisconsin could just. But Wisconsin in the last couple of weeks, once they get ahead late in the game, they're just like, okay, we're done. But like, because I
Why not?
have
Iowa's like winning like 21-3 though, right?
I mean, this spread is 7. I don't understand why this spread is 7, but I have 33-7 as the final score. I think Wisconsin can just keep pushing it on, right? And this could kind of look similar to the Penn State Iowa game in some cases, and that's kind of where I'm getting that higher total from. But I kind of I don't know. I don't want to play an under here. I just want to pound Wisconsin spread and alt spreads because I just don't think. I think Wisconsin's defense is good enough to just completely shut down this Iowa offense. Just not even a chance. And this would, again, Brian Ferentz under 5 points from what he needed last week, which again this is just snowballing. We're getting to a point where like they're gonna have to score like 50 or like 70 points in the final week to save his job, theoretically save his job. But the problem is now at this point, it's like, oh well, we lost our starting quarterback, and we still won some amount of games. We made a bowl game, and they won't fire him off of this. They won't, because it's going to be like, well, we lost our starting quarterback at this. There's going to be all excuses. I don't know. Maybe the new AD will have some teeth and be like, no, you're gone. But we'll see.
Yeah. Agree. All right. I've got Missouri and Kentucky going over 53. That actually seems a little short. I wonder if if that total's gone up. I can't see that. I mean, what I say that the average game is 52. I can't see it being an average game. Just nothing that involves Missouri is an average game.
It's 52.5. So
I don't get that. Okay. Yeah. I like that. And you've got You've got some snowball in there too. You've got 74.5, which actually seems more like it to me. This could be like the get well game for Devin Leary too, where he just really clears the sinuses and goes nuts. I kind of want to say there's no chance that USC and Notre Dame score 107 combined, but I know USC's defense too well where it could happen. I'm going to take the over here. I've got the over, and I've got the confirmatory with you as well. You going to take that over here?
Yeah, I'll take that over. I think that over. I think the Missouri. I kind of actually do like those two overs. Um, the thing is, it's like on one hand, it's like yeah, Notre Dame's defense the last couple of weeks hasn't been amazing, but at the same time, USC's defense has been that bad. But USC's offense is really good. Like I understand USC being a dog here, but at the same point, like every time you can get Caleb Williams at plus money, I think you take it too. Like that's not. I think I do have USC as a favorite. Probably, I think a big favorite here, which is probably a bit too
Yeah,
big. But
yeah, we're way different here. You've got him like 63 to 37 or something like that.
what do you have?
Maybe well, I'm see that's net to win or 7, but you've got some 60 something like that.
Mhm.
I actually have Notre Dame by 14 points here.
Oh wow, we're both
So
all
I've
over the
got
map
that.
here.
Yeah, I've got it like 44-30. Yeah, we're way different. And I will say my model's been closer on USC recently. Basically, the last 3 or 4 weeks.
That's
So
fair.
I'll bet the over here though. The only thing that concerns me a little bit is supposed to rain, but I don't know.
Mhm.
USC's an over team at this point. This next one, I kind of felt like, okay, I'm going to be the dope that goes in after Miami just completely craps the bed and says, well, their metrics are still good. Well, guess who else says their metrics are still good is you. You have Miami blowing out North Carolina here.
Yeah, this is concerning to me too. Looking at this, I just
It's
like
concerning.
I don't want to touch this. This is I've already bet UNC
I
here. Like I can't. Like here's the thing. I put a small bet on UNC. They win. Yay, I'm happy. They don't win. Okay. Like they cover the 3.5. They don't. Okay, right? Like I looking back on it, it's seeming like Miami's wins came against teams that weren't particularly good, and UNC seems legit. And maybe our models are just a little too slow to react to what happened last week with Georgia Tech. But like I can't back this Miami team after that. Like I mean, if they had won that, but this is the thing, right?
Yeah, but
If they
yeah,
take the knee and
but
win by 3, we're talking about it was an ugly win. But then we're like, oh man, it's so
yeah.
bad. Like I don't know. I don't know.
I
I
kind of
can't
think
take
that's why
Miami after that though.
that's I think that's why that might be actually the aside from just the metrics. That's I think that kind of weirdly makes me feel better because if you're taking Miami, you're probably getting a lot of that juice in your line, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that does make sense.
I want to look up one thing here. Where is you? Yeah, Miami's post game win expectancy against Georgia Tech was 76%. So they did just screw the pooch that badly. Unbelievable. And that's just not just like screwing up that last sequence. It's just like that's a whole game of screwing up to lose a game where you basically have a 76% win expectancy. And then there's a couple of UCLA and Oregon State plays here where we agree on UCLA, who I said weeks ago was criminally overrated or underrated, overlooked. Pardon me. I like them to win straight up, as do you. Actually like them more than I do. I'm very confident in that. I like the underplay too. I really like. I like that UCLA defense against basically anybody, and I really like Dante Moore at the road on the road, kind of struggling again against a decent defense. So yeah, that's not a I gotta fix that. That's not a dual model play. Pardon me, dear viewer, I screwed that up. That's just a buck play. We did not have a great week on the wrong teams favored. We can strike FIU since they're actually favored now, but UCLA, both our models like straight up as the wrong team favored. Probably pay about what plus 150. I'm guessing at that spread. So that covers what I like and the
One
dual
one
model
one quick
plays. Oh
one quick
yes,
note about that wrong team favored thing. That's wrong team favored. That 1-4 is straight up. I think against the spread,
yes,
it's even or like I don't know better than even. I think it's like 3-1 against the spread.
yeah, probably that sounds about right. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's just the money line play aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got my plays, we've got the dual model plays. So what do we need? What do we have from you that I need to make a note of and pass along to the listeners here?
Yeah. Okay. Um. Let's do. Uh. Oh, Wisconsin's up to 10. I got it at 7. Wow. Okay. Yeah. Give me Wake Forest money line against Virginia Tech. That's not a play here for some reason. Uh. I'd love to say Oregon spread in
What
money
kind
line,
of
but
money
that is a
line?
bit of.
Do you
Sorry.
have a money line there? Do you have a money line on
Oh,
price?
Wake Forest.
Yeah.
10 plus. I'm seeing plus 105, plus 1.5, plus
Okay.
105. Um. I'd love to give Oregon, but I feel like it's a bit too homer of an Oregon fan thing to do, so I won't do that. Um, but I will do. Um, what are some other ones here? Oh yeah, Tennessee minus 3.5.
They're playing A&M, right?
Yeah, I think people are like high on their Texas Tech's defensive rating. Um, I think they didn't realize that that's just good against the run, not good against the pass. Jalen Milroe's 300
Mm-hmm.
passing yards proves that, and have fun playing against Joe Milton. Um, what else here? Uh, what's Kansas? Give me Kansas minus 3 against Oklahoma State too.
-3.
On Yeah, against Oklahoma State, and give me Air Force minus 10 against Wyoming. And that's it.
Okay. Cool. All right. Well, good luck to you. Good luck to me. Good luck to everybody watching. Thank you for watching, and we will catch you in 1 week. We will have one episode next week due to whatever. But in the meantime, good luck.
Yep. See you guys next week.